Imagine that feeling you get when you first put on a good pair of noise-canceling headphones.
It really is remarkable, isn't it? That sudden silence.
Yes, it is. Now, what if we could bring that same sense of peace to our vision?
That's the fascinating idea behind something called, and forgive the jargon, visual noise cancellation, or VNC for short. Essentially, it's about creating a more serene, less visually overwhelming experience, much like noise cancellation does for audio. And it's the subject of this deep dive.
We're drawing on some very interesting research out of the University of Otago in New Zealand, where researchers have been doing a deep dive of their own into the nature of visual noise and how we might mitigate its effects.
And it's not just about aesthetics, although that plays a part.
Right.
Their research goes deeper. These researchers are suggesting that visual noise, anything that causes visual discomfort or distraction, it can significantly impact us.
It can impact our well-being, our focus, even our ability to function effectively.
Precisely.
So let's unpack this concept of visual noise a little. The researchers at Otago took what they call a human-centered approach. They conducted workshops with participants from all walks of life to really understand what people find visually displeasing.
It was essential to start with human perception
Sure.
instead of solely focusing on the science of vision.
Okay.
They wanted to understand what people actually find jarring, what really grates on them visually in their everyday lives.
And what did they find?
Well, a number of recurring themes emerged from these workshops.
Okay.
Participants, they often pointed to things that were excessively bright,
Right.
or environments that were cluttered and chaotic, or elements characterized by distracting flickering. It was essentially sensory overload.
Assault on the senses.
Yes. And the researchers, they went on to categorize these examples based on the nature of the visual noise itself, breaking it down into three main categories:
Okay.
waveform, temporal, and spatial.
So let's break those down. What constitutes waveform visual noise?
Think of it as the basic building blocks of light that are causing the issue. So we're talking about the characteristics of the light itself, specifically the frequency and intensity of the light that reaches our eyes.
So are we talking about those fluorescent lights that always seem to trigger a headache? Or being momentarily blinded by oncoming headlights when driving at night?
Exactly. But it can be even more subtle than that. Some people are particularly sensitive to specific colors,
Okay.
or the overall temperature of the light in a room. You know, that cold, sterile feeling you get under certain fluorescent lights?
I do, yes.
Well, that's a prime example of waveform visual noise, and that can evoke feelings of unease, anxiety even, and it can really hamper your ability to concentrate.
Interesting. I have to admit, I hadn't really considered the impact light color could have on mood before.
Oh, it can be significant.
Okay. What about the next category, temporal visual noise?
All right, so temporal visual noise, this is all about change over time.
Okay.
Things that flicker, flash, or move erratically, they can really mess with our cognitive processes.
So that person at the conference who just can't seem to sit still, and every time they move, it's like a distraction.
A perfect example. Our brains are hardwired to pay attention to movement. It's a survival mechanism. But in today's world, that often backfires and leads to this constant low-level visual stress. Even something as subtle as the flickering of fluorescent lights can be enough to trigger headaches in some people.
It's true. And then finally, there's spatial visual noise.
Right.
What does that one involve?
So spatial visual noise is all about the arrangement of things in our visual field.
Okay.
Too much clutter,
Right.
overly busy patterns,
Yeah.
even something like the strategic placement of advertisements, they all aim to grab our attention, often at the cost of our overall visual comfort.
So that feeling of being overwhelmed in a cluttered room?
Yes.
Or finding it hard to focus when you're surrounded by visually stimulating billboards?
Exactly.
That's spatial visual noise at work.
It is.
Our brains crave order and predictability.
They do.
And when our visual environment becomes too chaotic, it really taxes our cognitive resources.
Even if we don't consciously realize it.
Yeah, it's interesting. In their workshops, the researchers found that participants often cited advertisements as a source of visual noise. It really makes you think about the constant barrage of advertising we're exposed to every day.
It does. It's true. We are increasingly bombarded with visual information.
Right.
Much of it designed to capture our attention, often by exploiting these very principles of visual noise that we've been discussing.
It's very clever, but also, a little bit insidious in a way.
It can be, yes.
So given this constant onslaught of visual noise, what can we do about it? I mean, the researchers didn't just want to define the problem.
Yeah.
They wanted to explore potential solutions as well.
Of course.
And that's what led them to this concept of visual noise cancellation technology.
Exactly. And they didn't stop at just theorizing either.
Right.
They actually went ahead and developed some early stage prototypes.
They did.
Using modified VR headsets.
Interesting. So they actually built something.
They did. And these prototypes were designed to recreate specific visual noise scenarios.
Okay.
And then test out potential VNC solutions.
That's fascinating. So tell me, what would it be like to actually experience this VNC technology?
Well, let's start with their first prototype, which focused on light temperature.
Okay.
So imagine you walk into a room and it's lit with those harsh, sterile fluorescent lights.
I've been in that room.
We all have. Well, this prototype uses the headset to adjust the perceived color temperature, making it feel warmer, more inviting.
So it's like a digital warm filter for your eyes.
Kind of, yes.
I like it already.
It's really quite remarkable, and it highlights something really important. We're often unaware of just how much visual noise is affecting us until it's reduced.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
What about that scenario we talked about earlier with the blinding headlight?
Right.
Did they create a prototype to address that?
They did. Their second prototype specifically targeted extreme brightness. So, picture this. You're driving at night, and a cyclist with a super bright headlight comes toward you.
Happens all the time.
Right. This prototype, it identifies and selectively dims that bright spot while preserving your overall vision.
So instead of being momentarily blinded, you'd still see the cyclist.
Yes.
But without that intense glare.
Exactly. It's about creating a more balanced visual experience, filtering out the noise, but keeping the essential information.
I'm impressed. What other challenges did they tackle?
Well, their third prototype, it honed in on flickering light.
Okay.
You know those annoying blinking bicycle lights that can be so distracting in low light conditions?
The worst.
I know, right? Well, this prototype, it aimed to smooth out that flickering, creating the perception of a more constant light source.
A world without flickering lights.
Mm-hmm.
Sign me up. I can feel the tension headache I didn't know I had starting to proceed already.
All right.
And their final prototype, what did that address?
So their fourth one, that tackled spatial visual noise.
Okay.
That overwhelming clutter we were talking about. Right.
Imagine you're trying to appreciate a beautiful work of art in a crowded, visually chaotic gallery.
I can picture it.
This prototype, it subtly reduces the distractions in your peripheral vision, allowing you to focus on the artwork itself.
So it's like a virtual spotlight for your attention?
Precisely.
That could be huge, not just for things like productivity, but even for simply enjoying the world around us more fully.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating concept, isn't it?
It is. It's like we could curate our visual experiences in much the same way we adjust an audio equalizer.
Exactly.
But let's be realistic here. Are we saying that we're all going to have to wear VR headsets all the time to achieve this visual piece?
Well, not necessarily. It's important to remember that these prototypes are very much early explorations in this field.
Sure.
The researchers themselves acknowledge that significant advances in technology are still needed.
Of course.
Ideally, we'd have something like lightweight, aesthetically pleasing glasses, or maybe even contact lenses that could perform this kind of visual processing. So the technology needs a bit more time in the oven.
It does.
But what about the bigger picture here?
Okay.
If we were to develop the ability to essentially cancel aspects of the visual world, what are the implications of that? It does raise some big questions.
Yeah, it does.
For example, if VNC technology were to become as commonplace as, say, noise-canceling headphones are today, how might that change our relationship with the physical world?
It's an interesting thought, isn't it?
It is. Would we become so used to these curated visual experiences that we lose the ability to appreciate or even tolerate the raw, unfiltered world?
It's a valid concern. And then there's the question of, well, who gets to decide what constitutes visual noise in the first place?
Right.
What if these technologies are used to subtly manipulate our perceptions, perhaps for commercial gain?
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Imagine walking through a shopping mall and your VNC glasses are filtering out everything except for, well, the products that advertisers want you to see.
That's getting into some ethically murky territory.
It is.
It seems there's a fine line to tread here between enhancing our visual experiences and potentially limiting them.
There is, and that's precisely why research in this area is so important. As we develop increasingly sophisticated ways of interacting with and even altering our perceptions, we have to think carefully about the potential consequences, both good and bad.
Absolutely. So where does this leave us, the viewers, listeners? We've explored the nature of visual noise, its effects on us, and the exciting and perhaps slightly unnerving potential of VNC technology. But here's a final thought to leave you with. Imagine for a moment that you could customize your visual experience, just as you might adjust an audio equalizer. What aspects of your daily life would you choose to mute or amplify? And what might those choices say about your values, your priorities, even your perception of the world around you? That's all from us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep an eye out, so to speak, for visual noise in your own life. You might be surprised by what you discover.